Yo, what's up, guys? So, today we are covering not just APIs in general, but we're going to cover the Showdan API and the Showdan client, which uses the API, okay? And if you guys aren't familiar with what APIs are, they're pretty much just a way for people that create programs and tools and things like that to interact with specific websites, okay? So, like Facebook and things like this, it'll allow you to use that to import information from the websites to your tools. We're going to cover not APIs in general, but we're going to cover the Showdan API and what Showdan is and how it can be used to your advantage. So first things first. Actually, I'm not going to pull it up on here because I don't think I'm logged in on here. So we'll go ahead and pull it up over here. Now, this is a Patreon exclusive, so I appreciate it, guys. It's definitely something I'm really proud of that you guys are taking advantage of, and I think there's going to be great content to come. We're just getting started, and as you can see, I'm doing different content on here than I am on the YouTube, which will be mainly like CTFs and stuff like that, and then from there I will keep going. So, and I did get some stuff together to start creating a couple of classes for you guys. So without further ado, here we go. Thank you for your support, and let's get into it. So here we are. Here's the Showdan Io. If you guys aren't familiar with what Showdan is, it's basically a search engine for vulnerabilities in the world. So this is where it's a web crawler that basically goes around and scans every IP, and it then will tell you what vulnerabilities it has, what things like that. So keep in mind that unless you have the paid version, so you can see pricing. If you have the paid version, let's see which one it allows you. So this is the big one. That's expensive, but you can do vulnerability search filters. So as a hacker, you can specifically search for CVEs and find computers that have those CVE vulnerabilities, right? So as a hacker, that's obviously dangerous, but then also as like a security admin or cyber analyst or any position in a cyber field for a company, it's really good because you can actually search to see if any of your public facing stuff has these CVEs as well. The other big thing here is let's see. So you can see here the unlimited results. That's big if you're scanning a lot. 20 million results per month. That doesn't sound like a lot, or that sounds like a ton, but if you have a ton of computers and things that you're scanning, if you have a huge business, obviously that's not very much. So you can see you get access to all filters. This is the vulnerability search filters, one of the filters that you get. So that type of stuff's good. The one I'm looking for, I don't see it, but yeah, they just don't disclose it here, I guess. But basically, there's the other big thing is you get live IP monitoring. So you can put in your network and then they will actively scan it and tell you information rather than just waiting till it gets scanned. So let's just go ahead and start scanning stuff. So let's scan. We know SSH is on port 22, so let's just scan port 22. And we'll just see kind of how this works a little bit. Okay, so we have 515,000 computers or hosts in the world that are using port 22 that are public facing, meaning anyone can touch them, right? And then here's obviously a lot of information about them. This one's in the US. We'll click on it. And we're just going to kind of see what information they have. So here's all the open ports on this one. Here's the domains that it's actually registered to, the CVE vulnerabilities, things like that. Now, I'm not going to show too much on these companies because you can look this stuff up, and it's not my place to disclose this information for the companies. So you can just see that this is how it works. It tells you as many results as you want or don't want, I guess. Now, how can we use this to our advantage? Well, I'm going to show you guys one that I did for one of the Patreon members, actually, and that's doing a report on this. So I want to show you guys kind of one of the searches I did, and then how I got to where I could find more vulnerabilities and stuff. And then I'm going to show you the same searches, but I'm going to show them to you in the API. So For instance, so first thing we did is we did FTP. Okay, so you can see here we have FTP servers, FTP, and it says here user anonymous cannot log in. Okay, that's interesting because if you have, but then if you scroll down, you look right here, anonymous access granted. So that's a big vulnerability in FTP because if anonymous access is granted, that means anybody can log in anonymously, right? So that's pretty big. So what I did is any of this stuff is searchable. So wherever it was, I just said, okay, so the code is 230 anonymous access granted. I copy it. And now, so we have 4 million results here, right? So now if I paste this, you can see that takes us down to 26,000 results, and they're all anonymous access granted. So these are all theoretically vulnerable machines, right? Now, I'm not saying they all are because there's, you know, it says right there restrictions apply on some. So there's different things, but this at least is a foot in the door. So as a hacker, this tells me, okay, so there's 26,000 opportunities here, and how many of these can I take advantage of, and how many can I do other things with, right? So now this is nice because it's a web GUI. It's real easy to use. It's real simple. But the problem is that on the web GUI, you're kind of limited, right? Because what am I going to do? Am I going to go through, click these, and look at them all? No, I could download the results. That's doable, right? So that's nice. But what if I wanted to use this in a tool, or what if I wanted to just have an easier way of doing this? What if I don't want to open up Showdan every time? Or what if I'm, you know, remoting into my Linux server or something? You know, there's a bunch of different reasons why you would want to use this on a client. So here we go. So now the biggest thing here is with Showdan Io's API, you do have to have an API key. So that means you have to have an account. I have the upgraded account, so I'm not going to show my key because I don't want someone else using my account. So keep that in mind. There are going to be some steps that ask for the key. I'm going to either remove my screen, put the key in, then do it, or I'm going to purposely just explain it and not go through that part of it. So keep that in mind. So now we did the web browser Showdan. That's pretty easy, right? So now let's go ahead and show the client. So first things first, when you do the client, you have to install it. So you have to have Python on, which a lot of distros come with Python. So you're going to use the pip install, and then it's tacu, and then user, okay? And then it's Showdan. Now, it's pretty simple. I've already got it installed, but when you install this, it now allows you to run this command. And for some reason, I don't know if mine has, when it installed, it had this, some of these aren't working right, but it still works just fine. So this is going to pop up every time you guys are going to see this. I probably need to update something or reinstall it. But so here, I know you guys can't see it right now, but give me a sec. So here, perfect. You can see here's kind of the basic commands that you can do. Okay, so you can get alerts for certain networks, convert input, count. So count will tell you the number of results. So like on the web client, we got 26,000. That'll just tell us the 26,000 number rather than give us the actual ones. The host, that's going to search for specific IP addresses, things like that. Org. So if you type in an actual org, like facebook.com is one I use, for example, it'll give you a lot more information about facebook.com's domain and things that they see there. Stream. So stream is data in real time. Now keep in mind, some of these, the updated, so scan and IP, so like these, you have to have the upgraded memberships to do some of these. So keep that in mind. And then you can show info, and this, if I remember correctly, will not give away, Showdan info. This will give away, won't give away anything about my account except for how many searches and things I have left for the month. So yeah, so I have 88 credits left for a query. So that means I've done 12. Right? So now the big thing here is what we'll need to do is we need to actually learn how to use this client, right? So this is using the API, but it's using it in a bash script technically, right? Now they created it for us. It's a tool that we downloaded, not one that we had to make ourselves, but you can use these the API in your own bash scripts as well, which is really nice. And Showdan's website explains it perfectly. So, and actually gives you examples. I'll actually pull that over because it gives you really good examples. All right. So, for instance, if I wanted to... All right, so yeah, so I'll show you here if we pull this over. Okay, so if I wanted to, I could go to Showdan, and then we can say, let's learn some more, and then command line interface. Those are a little bit different. We want the actual API integrations. I don't see it on here, but I know they do have them on here. The let's see if it's developer portal. Okay, so there's the client that we just downloaded. Here's the API that I'm looking for. So let's say we want to go to the API, and so look at this. Look how nice this is for us, right? So now I'm not going to open. Let me make sure real quick because some of these show my API token. Yep, so I'm not going to open these, but I will show you, like for instance, if I wanted to do a search. So I'm just going to show you this little part. Hold on. I want to make sure it doesn't show anything. Okay, so if I wanted to do a search, so my API keys are right above and below it. I could change this to Showdan CLI or Python, and it will, whatever search I'm choosing, it will then change the code and show me what it looks like in that code so I can actually manipulate it. So it's actually really nice the way they do this. All right, so now we're on the API, or on the client, right? The Showdan client. So here we can actually do a couple of things. And I'm keeping this smaller, guys, so that you can see it with my camera. We'll go ahead and make it as big as we can. Okay. So now we'll clear this. All right. So now all we're going to do here is we saw the list of commands. So that's pretty easy. Now the first thing you're going to have to do when you download this is Showdan init. And then your API key. Now what this is going to do is initialize your API key on the system. And the reason you have to do that is so that it knows that you have a valid account, so that nobody can just randomly do this. Okay. So, and obviously you saw that each account has limited uses per month depending on what tier you have. Okay. So now what we can do, if you see here, we have a file here. This is my file that I downloaded. It's a little bit long, so I'm not gonna make you guys get crazy with it. But basically, I'm gonna show you how we did it. So we're gonna do download. Now, the reason we do download is because if you just search, so you can search with the client. If you just search, that's using up a query, right? Which is, you only have a limited amount per month. That's fine. Doesn't matter. But if you do it again and again and again, right, for the same search, you're using those queries that are not necessary. You can download these. So you can do Showdan download and then whatever you want, right? Because if you do whatever you want, then you have that data now where you can then from there do whatever you want with it, okay? Now you see the name of it here is 230. The reason is I did the same query that I did before, which was the 230 access granted, or anonymous access granted, excuse me, the same search we did earlier. I did that earlier and I downloaded it. So I would do 230 anonymous access granted. Now, I'm not going to run this because it does take a second to download because it's a lot of information. But that's all I do, and then it would download it for me in this nice JSON gzip file. Okay, and now here's the best part about this client is I can now go to Showdan, and I can say parse it, right? Because I want to parse through this information. So the big deal with this is I can open the file and show you guys, but there is just unbelievable amount of data in this thing, right? So it's just every freaking piece of information on every host, and I think it stops at 1,000. I don't think it downloads the full thing, but I could be wrong on the download versus the search. I know the search only shows 1,000 of the results. So here you go. So Showdan parse, okay? And then we're just going to say, what do we want to parse through? What do we want, right? Well, these are filters that you can find on the Showdan site, and it'll actually tell you what filters if you're looking for. So I'm going to do IP string, okay? And then I want to see the port, even though I know what port it is because this is only one port that I searched for. And then I'm going to say the organization. And this is because I just kind of want to see who's doing what, you know? And then what file, right? So it's a pretty simple command. You're parsing through the JSON file, and I'm looking for the IP string, the port, and the organization, right? So now keep in mind, this is all anonymous logins granted here. So if we hit enter here, these are all, now look at what we have. Now we have IP addresses, ports, and the name of the company. And we just have a target list here. That's what we have. Whether you like it or not, that's all this is. I just created this target list because these are all companies or IP addresses for companies that have anonymous login granted. Now, yeah, it looks like they probably do 1,000. It looks like there's nothing after that because there's not 1,000 quite here, but there's a decent amount. So you can see, and now I have this saved. I can keep this, right? So if you're creating a script, or let's say I'm not going to do this for you. I'm not going to tell you exactly how to do this, but let's just say I create a script, right? I ran this report. I create a script, and I said, do this, right? And then I hit enter. I just want the IP string, right? Okay. Now, who's to say, as a hacker, I don't just take all these IPs and run an nmap scan with this file that I just created and run an nmap scan on port 21 because that's what we did it on a FTP server, and see how many could easily get into, right? So think of that mentality when you're hacking. Even as a white hat hacker, I need to think that way because I need to know if one of my IPs is this easy to get on a list, that's a problem, right? So we've created a target list as a hacker in a matter of seconds. And now, mind you, if we had the upgraded version of the membership, which was like $400 a month or whatever, you can then search specific CVEs. So if you can search a specific CVE and say that CVE is super easy to get into, and there's let's say 1,000 of them, I can download that. I can do the same command I just did, but with the CVE filter instead of the 230 anonymous access granted. Use the CVE number if I had the upgraded account, and now I have a target list that is 100% vulnerable to a certain CVE that I can just take advantage of. Now, keep in mind, this is super illegal to take advantage of them, but it's not illegal to disclose this information to them. You could be helping them. They might not know this. There's a lot of things that you could do with this information legally. And then at the same time, it's not illegal to check this for your accounts, for your IP addresses, for your company's IP addresses, right? You could do the same thing I just did, but then try to actually, and this might work because it's JSON, it might not. So we'll grep, and let's say my IP was, obviously this isn't going to be here, but 127.0.0.1, which obviously is our home our home. But what I'm saying is, let's say this was my IP, I could just grep for it, and it didn't give me anything, which means it wasn't in there, right? So that's good. So now let's do the same thing just to show proof of concept, and we'll just grab one of the IPs, okay? And then we will do the same thing, but grep for that IP. Of course, I hit. Come on. All right, we're all over the place now. We're just going to paste it. Okay, so now hit enter. And boom, there it is. So that tells us that this IP address is in my list that I just created. So let's say that was my IP for my business. I now, in a matter of a couple of minutes, know that I'm vulnerable to this simply by using Showdan and looking, rather than scanning my whole network and doing all of that, which most of the time you have to do after hours. You have to have a tool to do all this stuff. So this isn't a foolproof plan. This is just public facing, meaning you're not going to get any internal networking stuff, but it is a good plan. Okay. So now we did that. Now I'm going to show you guys. So we did the web searches. We did the client, which is a basic bash script that you can use, right? And then now I'm going to show you how to import this and use it with Python. So right here is a simple Python script that was created, right? So all this does, and I purposely don't have my API key here, so I'll show you guys that here in a second. So let me go to Showdan here and get my API key. So you can see here, this is all it is. You have to know a little bit of Python, that's it. So here, we're importing Showdan, okay? Now we're saying, what would you like to search for? And then we're declaring that when they input it, that's the searched variable. And then facets, we haven't left facets, or we haven't mentioned facets, but all facets are basically filters. So you can search for like country, organization, you can say, give me that information. So super simple, super easy. Now the one thing I'll tell you is here, you see it says api.count. That is going to be what you're querying, or the type of query you're doing. So I could change this to api.search, but you're going to get a ton of information because it's not parsed through. That's why I prefer the client, unless you want to write an entire program and throw this in there. Then you'd have to obviously change it. So we have the API key. Now here you can see filter. This is what I'm naming the variable for the facets. Now facets, again, you could put country, org, IP address, all kinds of stuff that you can put, and they're basically filters. But what they're going to do is they're going to break things down into a specific way that you can see it. Okay, we're not going to use facets here just because I don't really want to. But yeah, so let's go ahead. I have to take this. Whoops, I have to take this over here real quick, and I have to input the API key because I'm not going to show it. And then when I input that API key, I will save it and then close it so you guys can't see it. Save. All right. So now, boom. So now we're just going to do Python 3, and we're going to say, I don't even remember the name of it, to be honest. Okay, Python 3. And we'll say Showdan base search. And this script, this is all it does, right? What would you like to search for? We'll search for the 230 access grant anonymous login granted. Now, I think that's anonymous access granted, I think is what it was. Now, this is just going to search for it. It's not going to give us the results. It's just going to give us the amount. So we can search for something and say, is there even enough to justify downloading this and stuff? Add facets, we're going to leave it blank. We don't care about it. We're going to let it run. And now this is reaching out as a Python script. It's reaching out to the website and pulling the information. So now you can see with that little script I created, now anytime I want to search something on Showdan, I can just run my script and it tells me there's 26,820, 230 anonymous granted. Okay, so now just to prove that that's, correct, we will go ahead and go to Showdan, search the 230 anonymous granted, and 26,820. The results are the exact same. So you can see 26,820, 26,820. So the results are the same. That's really good because that tells us it worked, right? It pulled the correct information. So that's pretty much it, guys. I want to show you guys at least 3 ways to use Showdan, but this is a way that you can really start diving in to Showdan and getting the results you wanted. So for instance, let's say you were doing something where you needed to know how many people are vulnerable to this, because it might be a problem, it might not be a problem, right? You can run this little Python script that I ran, and you can go back and pause the video. And from there, it tells you right there, 26,820 people are vulnerable to it, right? Now, just because their anonymous access is granted doesn't necessarily mean it's a problem, because they might do that on purpose. You know, they might know this. They might be like, yeah, we obviously need we need, the public to be able to do this. That's fine. That's cool, So not everything, just because that's there, doesn't mean it's a vulnerability, but it is a usual security issue. So it's something that I would look into if I worked there, right? I would be like, why do we have this, right? So things like that is the type of stuff you're looking for on Showdan that you can really start digging down into, is especially if you have the upgraded account where you can start looking at CVEs, because that is huge. If you can directly search for a CVE, that's game over, right? So hopefully you guys like this video. It's a lot of information, but it's just the same tool used 3 different ways. My favorite way is to use the client personally, because I can parse through the information and make target lists and make things like that. That is very useful, especially if you're doing this on an entire organization that's huge and has lots and lots of IPs and things like that. So that's it, guys. Hopefully you guys liked it. Hopefully you guys are enjoying the Patreon content. It is 100% exclusive. I will keep it exclusive as long as we continue this train going. But yeah, I plan on getting you guys classes here in the next 3 weeks. I think I have a lot more free time coming up soon. And when that happens, I'm going to do, the first class I'm going to do is A+. And I know a lot of people may think that's simple and basic, and that's true. But you need A+, in my opinion, to understand fundamental computers. Now, if you already know that stuff, don't worry about it, right? But some people honestly don't know that stuff. And when they don't know it, that's when the certs start to stack. You have A+, then you get Net+, then you get Sec+, or whatever, whatever you want. But the point is, those certs do stack, and especially with CompTIA just coming out with, I don't even remember what it's called, but it's called a stack cert or something. They sent me an email about it because I have it and I didn't know it. But now if you get those 3 certs in a row, you get an extra cert called like stack, I don't know, security professional or something like that. So I want to make sure I'm covering all the bases, and I want to make sure that it's fair for people that also need to understand those basics, right? Because this channel is about teaching and learning. It's not about just going over people's head and showing what we can do, right? So hopefully you guys enjoyed it. Hopefully we'll keep this train rolling. And guys, we're almost to 500 subs, so I appreciate it. Thank you for the support, and thanks for all the support on Patreon. See you guys.